welcome back to the Winning with Data podcast. I'm your host, Jake Schuster.
Hey, Alec Coughlin, Ron Chuckham.
Great to be here with you, Alec. We are talking today to Hadi Sotude. Welcome, Hadi.
Thanks for having me.
Great to be talking to you. Is it sunny in Zurich? I was there about a month ago for 2 days, and it was just beautiful out.
Yeah. It's now getting to what it should be. Yeah, sunny. Yeah.
So I always get excited when we talk to academic researchers because there's not as many of them out there in this field. So you're working on spatio-temporal network analysis of team tactical formation characteristics in soccer. That's a lot of words for folks to think about. Can you break down what that is, what you're hoping to investigate, and what you've found so far?
Yeah, so I think to put it in simple words, when you watch a football match or soccer match, you can see the lineup and the formation that was predicted by maybe the TV broadcast, how a team is going to play based on like the last 5 matches. And that's just a prediction. So there is nothing really official coming from the teams, how they want to play, except the starting 11 players that we know which players are going to be on the field. And the main idea and purpose is that whether we can make use of tracking data that is collected from, whether it's coming from TV broadcasts or it's from the optical cameras installed in the stadiums, to make use of them and try to basically infer the structure that each team is basically occupying over the match time, and whether events like, I don't know, substitutions, red cards, yellow cards, goals have any impact on they making a change into their structure. And of course, we know that, for example, in different phases of the game, a team plays differently. So maybe you are out of possession 4-4-2, but in possession, you have a different formation. And to get a better picture of how over the match time, all these dynamics work, and even you can go deeper and see which players are occupying which positions and how they are changing that, depending on whether they are 1 goal behind or whether they are 1 man down.
What's that led you to believe about systems in football and playing styles? You know, I really love how many teams are trying to have a consistent playing style no matter who the manager is, and purchasing and having a playing group that matches that. But at the same time, I almost feel like stereotypes are being thrown out the window. And you know, like I saw in American football with Bill Belichick, everyone's copying what Pep Guardiola does, and they're always a year or two behind his trends. But the systems and the formations and the positional stereotypes are changing so fast. What have your conclusions been kind of subjectively based on your research?
The research is mainly about looking to find solutions, how we can detect formations efficiently and accurately. And that's just another piece of information that we provide. Maybe it's in the match reports or opposition reports, or it can have all applications like in player recruitment. Yeah, you mentioned that if you look for books, I think like Inverting the Pyramid book, where they just go over all the history of formations and how they have developed over, I don't know, from 90s until now. Of course, back then, they were just relying on what they see in the newspapers, or some people just watching the match and coming up with some observations. But now we just want to be more accurate on that. My really research is not thinking about the applications. It's more about finding the efficient way to detect and identify them. And of course, there can be a lot of applications one can think of.
So, Adi, this is very fascinating. There's an audience segment that we have that's very technical. And then there's an audience segment that we have that's less, if not, non-technical. And I bet you there's somebody out there that's probably asking the question in their mind while they're listening to this is, when Hadi talks about making a prediction, practically speaking, how does that work? What are the data sets that are being used? How are they being interpreted and weighted? And using universal language, how would you describe the way that you all and your students are coming up with these predictions so that the person that's non-technical can understand?
Yeah, so I don't say it's really a prediction. It's looking for the past 5-10 matches of one team, opposition, for example, and try to find out which formations that they are playing based on those previous matches, and whether it had any relationship with the opponent that they, for example, were playing against. And that's just a descriptive analysis that you're providing. And then if you see like in 80% of the time, basically preferring a specific formation, you can expect in the next match, they will do the same. But of course, they can do just something completely different. So it's just to what extent we can get prepared for the next match. And I don't call it really so we are not really training an AI to predict the formation. We just want to look what they have done before and then have a descriptive analysis on that and say that's our prediction.
Could you tell us a little bit about the difference between, in your mind, descriptive and predictive analytics?
Descriptive is that you have a data set and you just want to try to describe it with numbers, so different dimensions and from different perspectives. But you are not necessarily saying what's going to happen next in the future. Well, if there is a strong pattern, then maybe it gives you the belief that, yeah, that's going to happen and repeat in the future. But if that's not clear, if the relationships are not, easy to understand from the data, because we maybe just plot it, for example, in 2D, or we have very small number of dimensions to look into the data, so then that becomes difficult. But then with prediction, I think what people or technical people mainly mean is that you build, a machine learning model, which can be something black box, like kind of neural network, or you can just go over something that is understandable, like logistic regression, and try to fit and find the parameters in a way that, based on what had happened before, it was working well in predicting previous matches. Then you want to say, okay, probably it's going to also do well in the future.
I love it. And so in the world of sport, you can imagine a scenario, right? Again, for the audience's benefit here, where they look at quote unquote game tape, right? But this is the way the machines can effectively facilitate the review of game tape, come to some conclusions, and then let the humans step in and interpret those conclusions and perhaps make their predictions using data sets that they maybe didn't have before.
Yeah, I think there's different dimensions to that. It's about the scalability. So if you want to go over, 10 matches for each opponent each week, if you want to do that manual, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of resources that you have, and you're paying those people video analysts and performance analysts. So what if you can do that part automated or maybe semi-automated? And another part is that, different staff that you have, they will maybe have a different interpretation of what a formation or a structure on the pitch or any concept that they want to monitor is, and they will start collecting it differently. But if you try to really define it with numbers and have it like in a machine, as you mentioned, it brings it maybe, let's say, more objectivity. It's just more transparent what's happening behind, and it's repeatable. So you can expect to get the same results over time, and it doesn't depend on one specific person that you have, and maybe in the next year he leaves and now someone else comes. And I think what I also saw a lot in the previous experience I had working like as a consultancy role was, clubs or teams have people called performance and video analysts collecting and tagging a lot of the customized concepts that they have. For example, let's say counter press. So they want to find out when during a match counter press starts and when it ends. But if they don't have a proper documentation of what they even mean by a counter press, then depending on who is there on the pitch for that match collecting that data, you can expect that their results will be different because they don't have really a documentation. And I think that's something you see maybe a lot when dealing with people in the industry, mainly performance analysts. They ask you, can you maybe calculate this specific concept for us? And then you say, okay, do you have like a documentation? They say, well, it's clear what counterpress is, but it's not really clear what counterpress is if you want to define it with numbers.
That's a really interesting one. I was at the Association of Sporting Directors event at Stamford Bridge last week, and the guys from Skill Corner were talking about this, that maybe there are stereotypes of which leagues have more pressing and less time on the ball and things like that that are not really validated by the data. You talked about tasks that take staff at clubs a long time and try to be more efficient. So one of our theses here at Gemini is that teams shouldn't have to be software companies on top of being a sports organization, right? They should hire, football analysts and basketball analysts. And it's not that they shouldn't hire any data scientists, but they shouldn't be playing catch up with the big tech companies of the world. I know that you developed a really cool tactical analysis app for the Dutch Football Federation. I'd love if you could kind of give us your thesis on what teams should be building themselves versus what they should buy off the shelf and customize for their own needs. Like, I think every team should have a web app of some kind internally for their own stakeholder needs, but what powers them, what drives them, what fills out the infrastructure I think is sometimes better off the shelf. So I'm curious from your experiences consulting in these rounds and building different things for teams, what do you think teams should build versus buy?
Yeah, so I will briefly explain what I did, and then we can discuss when to outsource it and when you need to really have some people in-house to develop the solution. So basically, in short, I mentioned they have performance and video analysts. They are doing the tagging of some customized concepts that it's really something that they have came up with, and maybe no one else outside that building or that environment has heard about those concepts. So they are not really like enterprise, so they are not really well known, let's say. And then, they knew that it takes time to do the tagging. And when you compare the results of two different performance analysts, maybe you get a 70% agreement on the results that they collect. So my basically 1 year thesis, where I did first my thesis, and then after that continued with them working on a consultancy basis, was to make use of event and tracking and video footage to try to build a pipeline that automates the process of collecting those concepts. And then you can just, in a scalable way, run it on the last 5-10 matches. You can export the results into the video analysis tool that they have, and so they can do some graphics on that. And then they can also have the results into a dashboard, like a web app, as you mentioned, and then they have different bar charts or scatter plots. So as you mentioned, probably for them, it was also a solution to go for third-party companies and ask them, can you just build and implement these concepts into your solution? Because they probably have been clients of some other companies in the industry. But for them, it was really important that they didn't want to disclose their secrets, let's say. So it was something that they didn't want to talk with anyone, because they knew, which of course I think it makes sense, if someone comes and tells you, can you build this customized concept? You don't want to only build it for that client. You want to build something that you can also sell to other clients, because depending on the time that you are spending on that, it should be something that also makes sense for you to invest that time. So it should be also applicable to other clients. So that's what probably the third-party company wants to do. But independent of that, the client in this case, they didn't want to go into that direction. They wanted to not disclose even that concept exists, and they wanted to keep it for themselves. So that's why the idea to have someone doing it in-house, something was that they thought maybe it makes sense at that point.
I know you're talking about different types of data sets that have gone into this earlier. Can you tell us what types of data make you the most excited in general, like around event tracking, packing, like what's out there, but also, and I'm leading the witness a little bit in terms of how I ask this, but like, what do you think is next for tracking data? What do you think teams should be trying to get out of tracking data?
I think for me, it really becomes a nightmare when I get data sources from different data providers. Like I get event data from, data provider A, and then get the tracking data from data provider B, and then get the video from someone else. And then I need to make use of all of them and synchronize them, for example. And that's just okay. It's not really consistent how you want to do the synchronization. I know there are some solutions out there, but they're really rule-based. And for me, it's really important, or it's going to be really beneficial if I'm working on a project, I get the data from a company who has done that synchronization, and they provide a solution, a data set that not only includes one type of data, it includes multiple of data set types, but it's also synchronized. So I can really make use of all of them together and to have the full picture. Because if you have event data, you only know what's happening on the ball. If you have only tracking data, you know, where everyone is there, but you don't know what's happening on the ball, what actions are there. And then, so that's really, I think it's about having the full picture.
You got to get your university to pay for Gemini so we can take care of that name ID matching for you.
Let's see. I think it's 1.5 years or something like that is still remaining. Yeah.
Totally. I'd love to hear you expand a little bit more on tracking data itself. What do you think are the biggest problems that teams can solve, or the biggest questions that teams can answer using tracking data?
So I think there are two different approaches. One is that there are some people out there who want to find out what's the optimal way to play, for example, let's say soccer. Now I'm just for the first time using the term soccer. So you want to find out the optimal way to play. But another approach is that you say, I just trust the coaching staff. They know how they want to play. My role is a supporting role here. I need to measure their progress with some numbers, some KPIs. And for example, tracking data can be a way for me to measure that. Let's say the coaching staff has the philosophy that the distance between our central defenders should not exceed a certain threshold. And then that's, for example, something important for them. So you don't question whether that's relevant or not. You are there to measure that, and you just build a really simple, rule-based solution or script to really detect the moments using the tracking data that threshold, that distance between the central defenders exceeded that threshold, and then try to automatically find and create video clips, and then maybe send it through WhatsApp or email to the coaching staff after the match. That's like, yeah, this is the moments that during this match, this situation that is undesired for you happened. And you just say that's the philosophy of the coach, that they want to play in this way. And you are not there to use data to say what's the right way to play. You are there to say, I trust you. This is how you want to play. And this is when it didn't happen.
Last question for me. Who's going to win the European Championships and who's going to win the Copa America?
I hope the Netherlands wins, but if I want to be realistic, I think the French team is really strong and they will just win it easily if nothing unexpected happens, let's say. And for Copa America, I think Messi still wants to do some stuff on the pitch. Yeah, but it's gonna be either Argentina or Brazil. So
Yeah, I'm going with the Seleção in that one. Hadi Sotuda, thank you so much for your time today.
yeah, thanks for having me.